Google Cloud is making its way a bit further into the Web3 landscape. Not the first time Google Cloud has done a notable thing over in crypto land, but this one certainly stands out. They're working with Coinbase to accept crypto payments from certain companies on cloud services. Really interesting development, and again, represents a further step by Google Cloud into the Web3 space. You've seen them at various crypto events. You've heard them talking about their learning approach. You've seen them for a long time on the Hedera Hashgraph Governing Council, among other things. This one suggests some continued interest and involvement in crypto for payments, which is a bit new. So notable development, and I'm going to toss it straight to David for his thoughts on this one. David, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, the payments thing is interesting because it's not interesting, if that's the right way to put it. The idea that of crypto payments integrations with mainstream anything has kind of lost a great deal of currency, so to speak, over the last 3 to 4 years. In 2016, 2015, that was definitely a big, I guess, bullish signal. You would look at things like, what's Patrick Burns' company, Overstock, was taking Bitcoin. That was big news in 2014 or something like that. But we don't see a whole lot of things like that. And it's frankly because they're not that interesting at the end of the day. But this, I think, is a bit of an exception, particularly because it sort of begins to hint at one of the actual fundamental advantage of crypto, because you can get automations going. You can get integrations that can do things that an individual bank account can't necessarily. But Zach, that also leads me back to a question, because you said this is enabling crypto payments for some companies. Does that mean it's not for everybody? Is it not open access?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I mean, that's what they said in their announcement. They're going to start letting some customers pay for cloud services with cryptocurrencies early in 2023. That's the news that was announced. What that means in practice in terms of who will be allowed to and who will not be, still a bit TBD as far as I understand it. But I saw Jen had her hand up, so I'm tossing it to her.
Yeah, I read this story and I was like, oh, it's kind of boring, but also exciting at the same time. So David, I share your sentiment. I think when we think about this story, I think we have to think about the ecosystem, right? So companies like Netflix and Airbnb are customers of Google Cloud. And so when we think about the ecosystem here, we can think about Netflix or Airbnb accepting crypto, and it's no longer this novel thing where they hold it or we don't know what they do with it. They convert it into fiat. There's now ecosystems being built out so that crypto can actually act like a traditional currency. And so I think that's why I was excited after I was bored this morning when I read this story. Will, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll take it really quick and then bounce it back up to Zach for final thoughts on the story. And we have a lot of these Google stories, but 95% of them are fake. And it's great to see a real one. Google stepping into the landscape, into the Web3 landscape, and adding a little bit of its muscle behind Coinbase. Coinbase is obviously very strong, so they might not even need the additional strength. But Google stepping in and taking things pretty seriously, and even lending some of their top talent and their top applications on behalf of Coinbase, that's a big deal. And I think that's why a lot of people in the past have tried to make those fake press releases, including Google, in their project. Because it's a large deal to see something like Google, Web2 giant, step into the space. And that is a bear market thing, right? A lot of times during a bull market, we see these nice headlines. They don't really matter typically. So when the bear market happens, we have these headlines. That's when we're seeing some applications being built for the future. Zach, I'll throw it up to you.
Yeah, I was just going to note a little sidebar, noticed by some folks over on Twitter and covered over at the block. If you pop in an Ethereum address into Google, now you get those little pre-populated little boxes that show you the balance of individual addresses. So in addition to some of these, more business-focused initiatives, you have Google seemingly experimenting in good faith in terms of adapting some of these services into the bread and butter, their search product, right? So that's kind of cool to be able to see it it's pulling from Etherscan, right? They're not creating their own block explorer, but they're pulling from Etherscan and showcasing balances is actually a really interesting, if incremental, step forward in terms of making Google a bit more Web3 friendly. So anyway, interesting stuff out of Google for sure. One to watch as it relates to the Web2 giants dabbling in Web3.